All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Made it through another week. Let's finish getting a couple of things set up here. And come on, buddy. What are we doing? It's wrestling my foot. Good way to start. Okay. Get some octopus time going on over here while we do the introduction. Good old octopus on a stick distraction protocol. How's it going, C. Grover? So happy Friday, everybody. My name is Tim. This is the Deep Dive program. I usually go by Foamy Guy on GitHub and Discord. That's where you can find me online. This is the Deep Dive program. On this program, we're working on CircuitPython stuff, generally speaking. If you are brand new or you're catching this in the future and you don't know anything about who I am or what that is, CircuitPython, the best place to go to learn more, to start out with at least, is circuitpython.org. So you can head there. To give you an idea, though, CircuitPython is basically a version of Python that runs on tiny computers called microcontrollers. These connect up to the computer. You write some Python code, you save it onto these devices, and then they execute your Python code for you. And they can interact with all sorts of devices and peripherals that are connected. So one thing you see here is these tiny computers come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and they all have different stuff connected to them. Some are big, some are small, some have buttons, some have screens, some have alligator clips, some are cheap, some are expensive, some have lots of pins, some only have a few pins, all kinds of different variations of these things. But the thing that ties them all together is that they run CircuitPython. We can program them by writing this Python code and saving it to them from a PC. CircuitPython is an open source project. All the development takes place out in the open on GitHub, as well as the coordination and things take place on Discord, typically. Between Discord and GitHub, pretty much everything that occurs in the project happens. If you're interested in getting involved, I encourage you to join us on the Discord, which is linked down below that way, adafru.it/Discord. That is also where the chat, which is right below me down there, is at. We are currently in the live broadcast chat room, which is a chat room that gets used when there are live streams going on. There are other rooms, or channels, I think Discord calls them. There are other channels on that Discord server which relate to different things. There's a couple of CircuitPython ones. There's also ones for other areas of interest with technology and electronics. So head over there if you're interested in joining us, or if you have questions about CircuitPython or Adafruit products or anything like that. While CircuitPython is an open source project, like I mentioned, it is primarily funded by this company, Adafruit. This is their website, adafruit.com. They're a hardware and software manufacturer based out of New York in the United States. So this is the company that's paying the folks who work on CircuitPython full-time. They're paying some folks who work on the project part-time, like myself. They, very much are paying the bills that keep the lights on, so to speak, for CircuitPython, right? As a project, they are paying the folks who are working on it. So huge thanks to Adafruit. And then, of course, if you want to help support the project, one of the ways you can do that is by purchasing hardware from them, since they are paying us to work on it. So thank you to them, and thank you to everybody who wants to purchase hardware from them. How's it going, Deshipu? Just got your Adafruit order. Kiyoshi, nice. That's always a good day. We could probably focus a little better. It's really not the end of the world. There we go. So specifically today, I'm actually going to be jumping into an area of CircuitPython called Blinka. So if we do look back at circuitpython.org, today what I'm dealing with is under this tab here, Blinka. What Blinka is all about, this is a compatibility layer. What this does is it runs on Raspberry Pis and other single board computers, Linux computers, as well as MicroPython devices. So it's kind of twofold what it does, two main things. One of them is it brings the CircuitPython APIs and libraries to MicroPython. The other one is that it brings the CircuitPython libraries and APIs to Linux with Raspberry Pis and other sorts of similar, single board computer devices. On YouTube, how's it going, Beata and Mr. Eon? Thank you for this. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for hanging out. How's it going, Paul SK? So Blinka is this compatibility layer. It runs in, normal Python, CPython as we would call it, just the regular standard everyday Python. Blinka allows us to use some CircuitPython libraries and some other CircuitPython utilities that ordinarily would run on those tiny computers, those microcontrollers, but instead we're going to run them on a fully fledged Linux operating system inside of regular Python. Blinka allows us to do that. It's like the go-between layer that allows that to work. So Blinka is what I'm going to be working on today. Adafruit's been great. I'm in the middle of RGB Cube, learning CircuitPython basics on the Trinket Neo key. Neo key, probably Trinky. Yeah, nice. RGB Cube, that'll be awesome. Post some if you're up to it. Once you get your build out there, definitely post some photos and stuff. We're always happy to see stuff like that. If you want to share any photos or information or videos or anything like that over on the Discord or Twitter, there's a bunch of different ways you can share them. But always love to see stuff that people make with all the parts and stuff. So that'd be awesome. So Blinka is where we're at today. Even more specifically, we're working on Blinka Display IO. We are trying to update Blinka Display IO to match the change in the Display IO APIs, which we made to the core a few weeks back. So if we go to the core, we could pull up that change. Essentially, we added a property for being able to set the root group instead of calling display.show. I think I put code in here somewhere. Yeah. So old version or current version in CircuitPython, how it used to be, how it technically still is today, unless you're using this cutting edge brand new build, is we have display.show like this. This is how you get your group onto the display using display IO. In the new version, though, it will work like this. You say display.rootGroup equals, and then you set the group you want to on there. So instead of calling show, you say I want to set my group onto the root group, and the root group is the one that is visible on the display. If you want to go to the terminal, you can set it to this. If you want to show nothing, you set it to this. That's the new API. We implemented this in the core, in the microcontroller version of CircuitPython. We implemented this a few weeks back. Now what I want to do is update the Blinka Display IO version to have these same APIs. I have my Raspberry Pi here. We were on the camera a little bit ago. We have the Raspberry Pi there. It's hooked up with the display, so we're ready to test this stuff out in that context. I think I did actually start this a little bit. I think I have a branch. Let's take a look here. So let's do a fetch, first of all. Well, let's check remotes, actually. So, well, and that's actually a little tricky, isn't it? Because I am... Well, no, actually, it should work fine to check remotes. So this project that I'm in here in Pycharm, this one's a bit interesting. This is actually... I have used SSHFS, which is a Linux utility that allows you to SSH to a device but create a connection as though it's like a connected drive, like a mounted hard drive or a thumb drive or something. So I have used SSH to connect to the Raspberry Pi as a file storage thing that's mounted, and then I have opened up this project as part of that mounted file system. So everything that's in this project is actually on the Raspberry Pi, even though what I have open here is Pycharm on my PC. So when we're ready to be running stuff, we're going to save it in here, and then we're going to have to use SSH to get to a terminal on the Pi and actually run it. That's how we'll do our kind of dev iteration loop. First things first, though, I think I have a branch and I pushed a little bit of stuff to it. So let's try to find that. And to start there, we should be able to just go get remote-v. This is going to tell us all the remotes. Now, what I will say is things are a little bit slower because of this SSH connection, right? Like, the files are not actually on my PC, so it's got to travel across the network. Saving and doing stuff that relies on those files is a little bit slower. There is only one. It's Foamy Guy. It's marked as origin right now, which I don't necessarily care for. I'm going to go get remote, rename origin Foamy Guy, just because I like to just not use origin because it's not specific. Rename. That's a nice one right there. Let's rename. That sounds better. Okay. Get remote -v. Now we got foamy guy. So let's go get fetch foamy guy, get fetch foamy guy. That is gonna, I don't know, download all my new branches, I think. I don't know the technical definition for what it does, but basically it's gonna update the branches and stuff. The branch I'm looking for, yeah, does not seem to be there right off the top. Add bitmap, catch, display, send, examples, main, to be pixel shader, palette items, size, props, tile grid fix. Yeah, none of those do sound like it. So I'll tell you what, I'm gonna open on my actual computer here. I'm gonna open look at display.io. Set root group. I have set root group here. Did I not push that? Check if I pushed that, I guess. Looks like I didn't push. I don't see set root group there. So back to this one. This is the one on my PC. I'm going to try to push this. Try to... Did I revert? All right, here's what we do. We're going to compare this to main. Compare with set root group. Starting set root. Yeah, there's one commit that exists in set root group, but not main. Did I push the commit? That is weird, huh? Set root group, get remote -v. What are remotes on this? Adafruit foamy guy. This show pushes? Yeah, that's a commit from 2 days ago. Foamy guy set root group. Why does it not show here? Okay. Let's figure out how do we get that. I mean, I could push again, I guess, but is it not already pushed? I think it's not gonna do anything else because there's no commits. Up to date. I'm very confused. Not there. I don't know how to close these now that they're open. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, it's here. It says it's pushed. I don't understand why we don't have it. I need to get it on the Pi. The problem here is this is on my local PC. I want to get the start that I had there. I mean, I guess we could start over. I could look at the changes. I suppose we'll do that if I just sit here and flounder for a few more minutes, but I don't understand why it's not pushed. How's it going, Axel Magnus? Just switched to Pycharm from Adam. Initial confusion gradually being supplanted by clarity, proven to be very worthwhile. Nice. Yeah, it does. It's pretty overwhelming at first. I will definitely say that. It was definitely overwhelming to me as well. But the more and more stuff that I learn how to use in it, the more and more like stuff it does to make my life easier. How's it going, DJ Devin? I don't understand. Shoot. See, this is what I try to avoid, and I clearly failed. Yeah. So I pushed it to Adafruit Remote accidentally because I accidentally named Adafruit Remote as Foamy Guy. Did not mean to do that. Refresh browser. Yeah, I think we got it nailed down now. Yeah, it's over here. Did not mean to do that. I'm not going to worry about deleting that one, but what I'll do is try to get that into Foamy Guy now. So first let's fix our... I don't actually know how to change the URL, so I guess we'll just go git remote remove. Git remote remove Foamy Guy. Does that work? I said remote twice. Git remote add Foamy Guy. Actually fix the URL because I'm sure what I did is copy and then not fix this. Git remote dash v. Okay, Foamy Guy is actually Foamy Guy now. Git fetch. So if we go push, but then we change this to here. Okay. I will need to ask like the rest of the core developers the right way to delete the branch. I don't want to risk deleting anything in there. Ideally, I would never want to commit anything into there either, which I only did by mistake. So like, I definitely don't want to go trying to delete stuff and mess anything up worse. So I will ask them how to do that, or ideally, hopefully ask one of them to delete it for me in the right way. For now, though, we got it onto Foamy Guy. We should be able to use it there. So let's get back to our Raspberry Pi project. And then here we should be able to just go fetch again and actually get our new thing now. And like I said, it's a bit slow because like we're, you know, SSH magic our file connection here. So everything takes a second longer. And the Pi is on Wi-Fi as well, right? So not only are we relying on that network connection is Wi-Fi going through a Raspberry Pi, 3B plus or whatever this one is. So set root group right there. We're going to check that out. And it's going to take it a second, but it'll get there. There we go. And then probably we should start with just running the simple test again. I will go back and look at that diff again because I truthfully don't recall exactly what all I got done. I didn't do much. Did not do much. I started... yeah, really what it is I started working on this and then I got into right away the differences between display.io Blinka and the core display.io, which was in the core, when we set it to none, we would show the terminal, but in Blinka, we don't have the terminal. So it behaved a bit different. So that's one of the changes is I started working on show none. What's the other change real fast? I had one more in the other file. I think I just created a set root group, yeah. show. Okay, interesting. Yeah, it like pushed it down. I see. Weird. Okay, yeah. So I added a print statement because I was trying to debug something. I added set root group. That's pretty much it so far. So we need to actually make it call set root group. We need to make a property. We need to actually make sure everything's working, fix any problems. So we still have like a lot of stuff to do. We're gonna get back over to our Raspberry Pi. We're gonna just run the simple test as is right now, just to see if this even works at all. This should not even be using any of the new code, so this is just gonna be calling show using the old API. If everything works right, this should just do the exact same thing as it did before. So hopefully that's what it will do. Actually, I have a screenshot in here, which is not necessarily simple test. Kind of interesting, though. I don't think we want to do that. Honestly, I don't think we can do that. That's not a method of display. I think what happened here is at one point in time, I was starting to add a save screenshot method to Blinka display object, but it turned out to be unnecessary. There's actually there's already a screenshot library. I actually made some tweaks to make it work with Blinka display. I think this must be a very, very old simple test that I must have been using when I was working on that stuff. This is also a tell that it's very old right here. Max size. You know, I think I might actually just go ahead and update this. I know there's a newer one on the Raspberry Pi, just in a different place. I think I'm actually going to grab that newer one. So it's actually over here, Pi mount. So this is the Raspberry Pi. I think it's the home directory. Go by list. Yeah, unfortunately, I have a lot of these. I don't have a lot of these. Simple test, I'm just going to grab that. To give it a new name, I guess. So I'll try to paste it in here. I don't know if that's going to actually work. It does. Okay, so hey, get down, buddy. That's not... Hey. Get down. Thank you. Okay. We will call this... I'm gonna call this one new API test. We don't want to add it. Okay. This is setting the text to hello world, which is actually, if we look back here, is already there. So I'm going to change it just so we know if it worked right. We'll say deep dive while we're here, right? Let's do that. I'm going to get an SSH open here. Ooh, what is all that? Oh, okay. Actually, I think it's just like stuff was too slow because of the file stuff. That's fine. SSH, no I. Pi. It's 119. Zero 119? 119. 169. Whoops. There we go. All right. SSH. So now this terminal here is on the Pi. This terminal here is local, even though they both say local. I don't know. Can I rename these? That'd be kind of interesting. Rename session. Pi. Remote. So to run this, where are we at? We're just in home. So we want to go inside the project that we're actually working in. So we're going to go cd Adafruit Blinka display IO. We're actually inside Foamy Guy right now. We're gonna go in there. Now to run this, we're gonna go Python 3 API test. No, new API test. It's gonna do its thing. Deep dive. There we go. You'll dust off there. What did Kitty do? Oh, he was jumping up on the desk that holds the screen, which that's a new thing for him. To be honest with you, I'm trying to think through. Let's give this a good think through. I don't recall him ever actually jumping up on the particular desk that he jumped up on just now. I think that I believe that, I mean, you know, what he does overnight, right? I'm sure he gets into everything we tell him not to overnight, but as far as what I have actually seen, I don't think I have ever seen him get up there. It's like the desk that the screen is on for my computer. Right now, though, he's crashed out. He was running around super fast, being ornery, and tried himself out, and he's just like nodding off here by the window. I don't have a good way to pipe the camera in. I really need to get some good ways to pipe in cameras. Okay, so this did run. It typed in deep dive, or not typed in, it showed it on there. I was gonna say it's a bitmap saver. Yeah, bitmap saver, the library bitmap saver is definitely the way to go if you want screenshots. I didn't realize that existed at the time I started writing that other version of the code. Yep, silly kitty, definitely. He's a fun one. He keeps us on our toes for sure. Yeah, that's true. He does. He wants some playtime, I think. We'll get him running around a bit more. When I was just starting, I don't know if you were here when I very first started the intro. Actually, he was here, and I had the old. I don't want to grab it right now because he actually opened his eyes and was looking at me, so that might rile him back up. But I got the old octopus on a string right here that I keep by my desk to play with him when he wants to come and play with me while I'm working on stuff. And I was sitting here like giving him the old octopus game while we were doing the intro just a bit ago. So that's working fine. So, you know, bare minimum, the good news is we haven't broken display IO yet with any of the changes we've made. So that's a good sign. Obviously, we haven't really done anything with changes either, but, you know, it's always good when you don't break something. And so I think we probably want to just, like, let's look at what we've done so far. Set root group we have. So I added this to display core. We probably want to look back at the core one, honestly, because we probably want to try to match the delineation between display core and display object. So in the core, on our display object, we made the property for setting the root group. We did that on all our types of displays. In the display core, we actually changed. Yeah. In the display core, we actually changed show to set root group, because in the display core, it's like completely internal to the API. Nothing outside the system is intended to use display core. So I've actually added set root group. I think what we want to do, though, is delete that and just rename show. All I did was copy it. I don't think I changed anything else yet, but I'm not positive. But I think we just want to rename show as set root group, because that's what we did in the core. So we're going to do that. And then whenever we call... Actually, before we do that, I'm gonna go find usages. So we found, so I just control clicked and now we're inside of display object. So we were in display core. I control clicked show. That's gonna find the usages. That's gonna find the code that calls show. In this case, that code was inside display right here. So display also has show, and it's actually just saying self.core.show. So right here, we're just gonna change that. In fact, actually, we can make this even easier. One of the amazing things about Pycharm, I don't know why I didn't do this before, but Pycharm has refactor rename. I could go Shift F6. I could highlight this thing. I go Shift F6, rename. We're just gonna say this is gonna be now set root group refactor. That's gonna go through the whole project and fix that usage of show inside display core. So if I save this, and if we go look back at display here, what we're gonna see, boom, this has been changed now to set root group. It will only do the core ones, right? This is still show here because that wasn't core, but any place where it was used, that will rename it for you. So super handy if you're like refactoring your code, you want to rename a thing to a new function or whatever. Is it possible to fix the glass? No. On my display, you mean? No. I unfortunately it took a tumble off of my desk here. What I will say though, truthfully, is that the camera and the light that we're picking it up with exacerbates the crack a lot. If you just look straight on at it with the eye, the naked eye, you don't really see it, truthfully, or I don't really see it. Like, you have to kind of look for it when you're looking at it straight on, but because of the glare, it's like super duper obvious in the camera. I should get a new one of these. Honestly, this is very old. I want to say this is like one of the probably first probably 4 or 5 Adafruit things I ever had was this Raspberry Pi display here. I'm kind of curious. Will the page show it to me, do you think? I don't know if I'm logged in. If I'm logged in, we'll look. If I'm not logged in, then I won't mess with it. Well, I guess is it... Okay. Yeah, no, it's 2-factor. I won't mess with it. I think that was like one of my, literally one of the very, very, very first things I ever bought from Adafruit ever. Way back was this display. So it's been through a lot for sure. I should pick up one of the newer ones. You can tell it's one of the super old ones too because it has the original Raspberry Pi header, not the newer one with the bigger thing. It's also like square. The more modern ones of these, the Adafruit device, they don't overhang here. They're like nice rounded corners and they match the size perfectly, I believe. But this one matches the old school, like original Raspberry Pi, the regular one with the ports that were all on like every different side, you know? Should never, yeah, no, I definitely won't be. Have a crack just like that on your phone screen protector. Yeah, if it works, it works. Yep. That is how I am as well. Renaming show. Oh, let me catch up here. Possible. So let's see. Is it already at the step for renaming show? Okay, so important distinction. The one that I renamed is only inside display core, which is a completely internal API. So while I renamed it, it's completely internal. This does not actually affect any outside code yet. So to your point, this is not renaming the API that everyone will use. This is renaming the internal portion of the API that the one that everyone uses turns around and uses, but they don't have to know the name of it. So we rename the internal one. The last step, the very, very last step, when CircuitPython 9 or whatever comes out, that will be to rename, or technically really at that point it'll just be get rid of the old API, the old show function on the display object. Yeah, good question. Cat-related tumble? No. I think that one was on me. I don't recall the specific circumstances, but I think it was on me and not the cat. New here, is there a possibility to do a C# equivalent code for Adafruit displays? Ooh, interesting question. I do not know of any way to interact with the display using C#. I will say I don't have very much experience with C# at all. I did a tiny bit of, I took one sort of programming, like intro to programming course in C Sharp. By the time I took that, I already knew Java, so it was not really intro to programming for me, but it was intro to C Sharp. I did one other thing with C Sharp beyond that class, which was working on Siftio cubes, which is what was an old, like, interesting little toy thing that had a C Sharp API. Those are the only things I've ever done with C Sharp personally. If there is a way to execute C Sharp stuff on a Raspberry Pi, and if there is a way to, in particular, write C Sharp programs that interact with the GPIO pins, if that is possible, then it should be possible to use this display from C Sharp. I can't tell you yes or no that is or is not possible. I don't know the answers to like really either of those questions. But I can say, you know, if it's possible to write C Sharp programs on a Raspberry Pi that use these pins, then it should be theoretically possible to use the display now. Whether or not there's a driver built for it, or you would have to do that yourself, whether or not you'd want to find some glue maybe to Python so that you'd kind of be hooking up to Blinka, since Blinka exists already and can drive this, like that might be one avenue. There's lots of ways it could work. There's lots of potential hurdles and things to work through. Potentially lots of effort that would need to be put in to make it work, but you know, technically speaking, I think it should be possible, again, as long as it is possible to write C Sharp code and use those IO pins, then I don't see any reason why you could not ultimately use the display. The private API, yes, that's the, yep, private API is the bit we're changing, right? Keep forgetting that's still, yeah, we'll be way down the road by the time we actually change the real one. You had an OS which can run C Sharp and a board which had IO pins. Yep, generally speaking, that's pretty much the gist of what you need. And I will say too, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be Raspberry Pi specifically. Maybe there's another little single board computer that is made with C Sharp in mind, or whatever, right? Like if that exists, then it could be that device as well, and theoretically it may be possible. Yeah. So yeah, sorry I can't give you like more specific detail on it, but good question nonetheless. I do appreciate you hanging out and asking. Always good to get folks asking stuff. So there we should be good, and now we've changed it from show here, so let's run it here, right? We only made one small change, but let's make sure we haven't broken anything. Yeah, we can't run it that way. I guess I'll change this again. I mean, it's be nice. I almost want to, like, maybe we should have this do a random number or something that will change each time. I don't know. Okay, so it's actually still running, so I'm going to do Control-C to stop it running. Once it stops running, like, really nothing happens, though, because the display doesn't refresh after you stop it. So, like, if we go back to the camera, let me find the camera. I got too many windows now. I think I did it on the first one, so it'd be easier to see, and then I just messed it up, went right past it anyway. Camera's there. So it just keeps running, right? I closed it, I Control-C to stop it, but it just stays there. But what we can do is just rerun the new one now, and it'll show the new stuff, hopefully. Either that or we broke something, so we'll see there as well. Okay, looking good. Blinka display IO. Haven't broken anything yet. So that still works. One thing I want to know is what happens on Blinka display IO, particularly on a Raspberry Pi, when you show none. So we're going to go time.sleep3. We're going to go display.show none. Print showing none. Stop that one. Run it again. Time not defined. X. It's deep. Oh, interesting. It doesn't. Oh, it doesn't have a Python. Interesting. Yeah, that's all right. We'll just go import time. Might be nice if we gave it a an environment, but probably wants time first, honestly. If we run Pylint or whatever, I think it's gonna cry if we don't put time first, or at least before some of these things. All right, 1 second. I gotta see what little man's getting into here. Okay. Rubber band piece. Don't want him necessarily to play with that because he'll try and eat it. Okay. Yeah, so I suppose, yeah, we'll rerun that and let's see, because I don't actually know. My prediction here is that show none in Blinka Display IO today basically won't do anything. I think it will just keep showing what it has. Yeah. Oh. Showing. Oh, okay. I added that maybe. Showing. Yeah, I added this. Yeah. Okay. Because I started working on this, the showing nothing, and so this was a difference between core and Blinka, because in the core, when you would show none, it would show the terminal, but in Blinka we don't have the terminal. So like the behavior had to be different. But what we do want is we want to match the new behavior. In the core, when you set root group to none, what we want is to show nothing, to show darkness, right? The screen is off. None of the pixels are lit up. Always do time, then board. Moo does have the ability to suggest the orders, so if it's bad, otherwise it won't complain. I gotcha. Yeah, I think Pylint maybe, or Black. One of those two complains as well. If you... I forget the wording. It says something about a built-in module after another module or something. All right, I think we don't want to do this for right now. That's just spamming. So I suppose one question is, do we want to go backwards and make it so that show none shows blank? Or do we want to just leave show none alone and only handle set root group? I kind of think we want to do show none as blank, because in the core, in the actual core when we did this, we wanted show none to keep its same behavior, to go to the terminal. But the behavior here in Blinka is pretty much incidental anyway. It's not actually doing anything, really. It's just not doing something. It's not doing the same thing the core does because we don't have the terminal. Yeah. And I actually did solve this problem. So different part of when I worked on this the other day, part of what I did was work on my Pygame display. And I implemented it to properly show none inside of there. So I think I'm going to steal that. And I essentially had to just draw a black rectangle, if I recall correctly. Will I need to refresh? I'm not sure if I'll need to refresh. Okay, we already have buffer equals image new. We already have buffer paste, so we need the bits in between there. Draw. So this creates an image draw. This is a PIL object right here. Whoops, 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 whoops. This is a PIL object for being able to draw inside PIL images, which is what this is. We're going to draw a rectangle. It's going to start at 0, 0. It's going to be the same size as the image. Height and width, same height and width as the image. And it's going to fill black. And then we'll see if this works. I'm not sure if the refresh is going to work. We might need to add that flag, that forced refresh thing there. So we'll see if it still doesn't refresh. So let's scoot that over. Let's go back to our camera. Go back to our terminal. Run that one again. Show none blank sounds logical. Yep, that's what it will do in the long term, ultimately. When we get all the way to set root group, the new version, that's the behavior we'll have. But on microcontrollers, we wanted backwards compatibility. So on microcontrollers, if you use what I'll call the old API, the .show API, it will keep its old behavior for none. Image draw is not defined, so I just need to import that, I think. I almost do think I want to just choose this, because then stuff like this will be, whoops, I could just go like this number. Oh, it's not. Oh, I was on the wrong one. Here, let's do that. Import, yeah, I like that. In this case, I don't actually know which one it is, so it didn't help us draw. Just top level image draw. All right, we show our label, we wait 3 seconds, we show our none. We're supposed to be showing none. It's not quite showing none so well, but I think that's going to be that our refresh thing. So this other bit of code we had here, force refresh. We want to do that. So breaking it down a bit, the way this ordinarily works, the way this used to work, so to speak, is this is inside refresh, okay? So this function gets called quickly, multiple times a second if everything's going right. It's called very fast, and it prepares the image that's going to be drawn on the screen. It creates a PIL image that essentially is this picture right here. It gets the bytes inside that image, and it sends it over the SPI bus to the display, basically. But it chooses which parts to send to the SPI bus based on these subrectangles. We only actually refresh display area on the subrectangles that have changed. And in our case, there's not going to be any, because it doesn't know that anything changed. So like if we went print self.subrectangles here, it's going to be an empty list. Which is why our display is not actually changing, because we didn't refresh display areas, any part of the display. Okay, so we have, so at the beginning there, while we were waiting our 3 seconds, everything was fine. We were getting like an actual object there, but then afterwards we got an empty list. So after we did show none, that's when we started getting no of these refresh areas. And we just need basically the same thing here. So we want to go, not here, but here. Forceful refresh equals true, and then we'll have this logic here, which will basically make a rectangle that's the same size as the display. Treat that as the refresh area that actually needs to be refreshed. Go here. To get the right 2 of these so I could copy back and forth a little bit better. So we had this logic. Now this is going to be here. No, it's going to be here. Else, we don't need print. Regarding C# equivalent, not sure what you mean by equivalent. CircuitPython is not that different in theory from C#. Let's. I'm not sure how I used equivalence. Sorry, I'm not sure exactly what I said anymore. And I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, CircuitPython is I mean, it's fairly quite a bit different than C# because CircuitPython, actual CircuitPython, not Blinka. Like the stuff we're working on here is Blinka, but actual regular CircuitPython is going to be much different than C# because it runs on those microcontrollers, those very tiny computers, not like a fully fledged operating system like Windows or Linux. In that they're both programming languages, in that, you write code in both of them and it's like instructions to the computer. The computer executes that code in some way or whatever. Like in that manner, they're obviously pretty similar, but in terms of like what things they can run on and the syntax of the code and stuff, I would imagine they're definitely pretty different. That being said, I don't remember that much about C#. In my memory, it's similar to Java, but I actually learned Java first, so like I always related it to Java anyway. Maybe I became biased because of that. Pylint usually has a couple suggestions about import ordering. Since none is terminal on MCUs, then there could just be blank for blank. Yeah, we could make a new constant for blank, I guess. I think I'm gonna submit the PR with none, and if anybody reviews and asks to change it, then we can certainly change it. But I like the idea of none showing none, honestly. If it were fully up to me, I'd actually be a bit more aggressive in the deprecation. If it were fully up to me, I'd say even starting now, if you do show none, you'll get nothing instead of getting the backwards compatible terminal. But it's not fully up to me, and Scott recommended the opposite way, so I'm also happy to follow Scott's recommendation for sure. But we'll see on Blinka. I feel like Blinka is a bit of a different scenario than the core because of the way that it doesn't actually do the thing when you show none anyway. So I think it makes sense to do that now in this case. But if not, then we'll change it up there as well. Once I got over the my code is working fine, so why the suggestions attitude? Pylint has become a great Python mentor. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Pylint, it's easy to just look at Pylint as this annoyance that's like, change this code, change that code. Why'd you write it this way or whatever? But over time, if you do start to internalize some of the suggestions it has for you, like you find that your code does start looking a bit cleaner, a bit nicer, a bit more consistent, a bit easy to read over and understand. So it is nice. Suggestions on fully working code. Yeah, so from Pylint's perspective, it could be to help optimize it. It could be to help make it more legible. It could be to help keep it formatted nicely. Things like how many times it nests, like if you nest more than 4 times or whatever, and it's too many indentions, like it'll flag that sort of stuff. It's generally to kind of like pretty up your code. Some of that is efficiency, some of that is legibility, some of that is truthfully just opinion and syntax, but all those things kind of combine to pretty up your code a bit. I don't think you can allow a literal blank, as it probably requires some type. No, yeah, literal. I think we'd have just a constant called blank or something. It'd be actually like 0 or none, or it'd be something that's an actual thing. But yep, agreed there. Definitely gotta defer to Scott's expertise on all things CircuitPython and core related for sure. And I think Scott did a lot of the work on display IO as well. So like, obviously, I'm gonna be going with whatever he thinks on any of this stuff. Is our else? I don't think our else is right yet. Let's see. What do we have here? We had. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, okay. We did have the full else in here. I suppose in this one I could get rid of this print as well. That's going to be spamming, but we actually just do all of this inside the else. Finish will just happen here. I think that part's fine. Okay. What is this, yellow? Might be referenced before assignment. I mean... Oh, I see. Yeah, see, else, this is else. So if this was true and we did this one, we won't have that. So we actually need, I guess, force full refresh false. Okay. Yeah, Pylint is a lot like Pycharm, right? Like this thing highlighted this yellow. It was like, hey, like, are you sure this is how you want this? You know, maybe in some cases this might not going to do what you want. So make sure that's actually what you want. Pylint's a pretty similar kind of tool. In fact, the thing Pycharm is using, it might even be Pylint. I don't know. It's a linter. I don't know if it's the same one, but that's kind of the idea. Is it will try to point stuff out to you that might be actually problematic. Like in my case, there was actually a path of code that it didn't consider, which probably would have raised an exception or something. Or it might just be like, you know, hey, the best practice way to write this line of code is this other way or whatever. Okay, so 3 seconds of our label. Show none. Boom. Got the black screen there. Perfect. That's doing what I think we want it to do. Again, we'll see. I'll submit the review. I'll submit the PR this way. We'll see if there is other ideas for what it should do when you show none. But I think that's what is best as far as I figure so far, thinking about it. C. Grover, I felt that way about Moo, but my code is always gorgeously laid out and forced me into great habits. First, I wanted to hold on to my bad habits, bring it over my PHP, which is a bad idea, to bring over the PHP syntax habits into CP, which is a bad idea. Overall, Moo forced the formatting, and Pylint is great at the end of the day. Sharing code on Discord and GitHub, etc. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Pylint is really nice. Like if you know you're writing code to publish, it's definitely worth the extra time and effort to get it cleaned up that little extra bit, just to make it, you know, that much easier for the other folks to use it. So whatever, everything I write's an utter mess. Usually have lots of old comments, commented out codes, and things like that. Or stuff that I was trying from code that was grabbed elsewhere. Yeah, I'm with you, Kiyoshi. To be honest with you, I'm 100% the exact same way. What I will say, though, is like contributing to CircuitPython and having to go through the exercise of cleaning up the code in the PR actually got me to be a lot better. But to be honest, like I certainly was, and frankly, I'd say I still am the exact same way. When I write something out just for the first time, it is exactly like what you described. There's massive commented out sections. There's code copied from other places. There's, you know, extra print statements that don't make sense, or print weird stuff or whatever. There's all kinds of just stuff that is not great. And then contributing to CircuitPython has gotten me to like start doing those lookovers afterwards with Pylint and Black and all that stuff. But over time, you know, as you do that more and more and more, what you start to find is that, you know, little things you get better and better and better at writing it out cleaner the first time. But that being said, like, you know, if you look, if you were to go and look at like some of my work code, for instance, some of my non-CircuitPython, but like my day job coding code, you know, you'll find a fair amount of what you described there, truthfully. There's some PHP compilers, what helps, so no need to write PHP. Okay. So our show none is working, and so really now we need to be getting our set root group, which is going to be, I think, honestly, pretty easy. So we basically... So this is actually just calling core set root group already. So pretty much we're just going to say... Well, first thing, do we have a get root group? Oh, okay, actually, I started coding this down here. Fair enough. Okay, we have a get root group. It's this. I actually have a set root group as well. Current group is new group, and then really all we want to do is actually just take the same thing that's in show. Where's that show? So it just said core set root group. We need to set current group? I feel like we would need to set current group, wouldn't we? Or does core do that for us? Because here I have current group equals new group. All right, let's test it out. So before we sleep, let's say print display.root group. Let's also say print display.root group equals splash. See if that is the splash object, which is what it should be if that's working right, I think. None, false. Okay, yeah, we probably need to be doing that inside a show. When you start pushing PRs and knowing your code is going to get reviewed, you approach it in a different way. Yeah. Code that's just for myself, not a GitHub or in a PR, is extremely messy, kind of like getting dressed up for church versus hanging out in sweatpants. Yeah, that's a good analogy. All right, so we actually, inside show, we want to be saying, in here, current group equals group. Surprised that, I guess, okay, maybe I added that. I was thinking that was there, but maybe it wasn't. I mean, this goes core current group. Maybe we shouldn't be having current group on here. This is inside the core object. Let me look back at our microcontroller one. So that's what I wanted. So what I need to know is in the core on display, did it get a current group? Does it have a current group? I'm actually gonna look in CLine instead of GitHub. Although this is probably gonna take a minute to update. I wonder if I have a new enough one that has this stuff in it. It does have, well, no, that's core current group. Okay. All right. I will actually look on GitHub real fast, since that's going to probably take a second to fetch. And by a second, I mean, honestly, it'll probably be a few minutes. Does it matter if we go bindings or module? Go module. Basically, we want to know, is there a current group on this object in the core? There's core current group. That's on the core. That's not on this object. That's on the display core. Yeah, all of these are on core. There's only 5. I mean, there's only 6, rather. We've already looped more than once. Okay, yeah, all those are on core. So in our Blinka display, we don't want... In our Blinka display, we don't want current group on display. We don't want that. We shouldn't have this here. This is already calling into core. Probably that is setting the core current group inside of there. And for our Git, we should be doing not self.current group. Instead, this should just be core current group. Yeah, unfortunately, the terminology gets a lot confused here, right? Because we're talking about the core as in CircuitPython core, but we also have display core, which is called core here as well. So got a lot of different contexts going on there. Let me catch up here. Did a bunch of coding. We got the hee for the sweatpants. Yeah, the analogy for church there. Did a bunch of coding of firmware and assembly where the structure and Byakup comments? Byaku comments? I'm not familiar with that term. Created some good habits except concise brevity. Still working on that. All right, comments geared towards beginners. Probably something I picked up reading so many learn guides. Does rub off, but it helps even to give reviewers context. That's true, yeah. Definitely, it's a lot quicker and easier to review code that is like commented well and documented well and stuff. I agree there. So when we access root group from the display object, we actually want to just reach into the core and get the current group from there. When we set it, we actually don't even need to do this. We're just going to say set. We're going to do the same thing that show does. Show. Just set core set root group right here. We already have this pretty much. We could steal this doc string as well, to be honest. I don't know what happened to our formatting. Actually, new group. Okay, save that. So we should be able to now go. Let's say after our sleep here, let's say no, actually, let's go show none, then let's go another 1 second of none, and then we go display.root group equals. We'll just go back to splash for now. Keep trying to move the mouse pointer between the workstation and the laptop. Nice. Yeah, so I normally have 2 screens that are hooked up to my same computer, so I can just run my mouse across them. Every now and then, though, I'll be doing something else on the other screen. I'll have a Raspberry Pi, or I'll have another computer or something showing on that other screen, and I will just utterly and completely confuse myself when the mouse just will not move over to there. It just refuses to go onto that other screen, and of course it's because it's a different device, but so definitely been there. Byakup is pronounced Bauku. Bauku. Don't know what it means. Interesting. The French equivalent to plethora. Oh, okay. Bauku. Huh. The more you know. Yeah, no, I never heard that before. That's interesting. Don't really write comments yourself? Or future me to remind me of the new concept I displayed. Yeah. Comments to future me are a thing that I did not do enough of in the past and have since started to get better at, and seen the amount of power that past me has in terms of being able to convey useful stuff to future me. It only takes a few times of like past you really saving current you's butt to start thinking that writing comments like that is a really nice thing. And the first couple of times that it happens where you're like, holy crap, I wrote this thing that is like the perfect thing I needed to use in this new situation 9 months later that I totally forgot about it, is awesome feeling too. Boku. Usually write all the comments, then figure out how to do that in the code. Yeah, I have a few times done where I've like written my comments out kind of first as pseudocode essentially, and then gone back and filled in the code. It's not how I write everything that I do, certainly, but I did find it pretty enjoyable, truthfully. The times I did it was mostly JavaScript stuff. I did find it pretty nice, though. It's a thing I should probably try to do more in some other contexts. Bow like bow and arrow. Oh, I said bow. Okay, let me check it out again. Bow like bow and arrow. Boku. 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 Interesting. Boku is a better description. It's the American way. Okay, so we sleep again. We're going to set that back to splash. So let's see if that works. So if that works, we're going to show our... Let's change our thing up here as well. We've done some stuff since then. Let's just say stuff. We'll just change it to something else. If that works, then we're going to show our text. We are going to show none for 1 second. Then we're going to go back to showing our text. Maybe we should change as well. Should we change as well? Let's do that. Oh, let's close that. Trying to convey pronunciation. Text is hard. Alrighty. Run this one. All right, our root group is working good now. Our root group is actually a group object. It is equal to splash, so that was good. Then we went to show none. That seemed like it was working fine. We have some extra prints in here inside the display object, it looks like, somewhere still, which we'll get rid of. But functionality-wise, it looks like that worked. We set it to root group. It seems like it's working. Let's go time.sleep another 2 seconds. Let's go display.rootGroup equals none. So then we should be left on blank again when we're done now. We'll flip back and forth twice or whatever. So Blinka stuff, none, changed, back to none. Perfect. Is there anything else we need? I think that's kind of all we need, isn't it? Am I forgetting anything? So do we have, so in the core, one of the things we had was like e-paper display, frame buffer display. There is e-paper display actually, yeah, okay. You know, I've never used an e-paper display with a Raspberry Pi. Maybe we'll have to hook that up, I guess, to test this out. It's not going to be a tonight activity for that because I don't even have a... to be honest with you, I don't know if I have an e-ink display that I can hook up to a Raspberry Pi. I'll have to dig through the old, I'll say parts bin, but it's really a parts room at this point. We'll have to dig through the old parts room and see. I know I picked up e-ink displays here and there, but I have no idea if I got one that's going to be Raspberry Pi compatible or not. So when we tested this on CircuitPython in the core, I tested on the MagTag. It has built-in display. But we can't use that on a Raspberry Pi, certainly, so. Is that a blame plugin you're using in Pycharm to show who wrote what? You probably explained this earlier. Yeah, no, I have not explained it earlier. I don't know. I got the newest version of Pycharm when I got this new computer, which was a little bit before my birthday. I think I got this computer towards the end of October, somewhere around there. When I got this new computer, I installed the latest and greatest brand newest version of Pycharm. When I got that brand newest version of Pycharm, it's been, ever since then, it's been showing me the, what Git calls blame. I think blame has a negative connotation, but yeah, what Git calls blame, essentially the author of the different parts of code. Truth be told, I would kind of like to turn it off because occasionally I accidentally click this and then for whatever reason don't know how to close it. In this case, it looks like all I did was just click this again to close it, and I don't really see why that would be so hard or why I wouldn't be able to figure that out. But multiple times now I have actually ended up with this open and then just like gotten flustered being like, give me my space back. There's no minus, go away. I'll have to remember that it's this. Honestly, because it has come up now and because it's now in my conscious, I'm going to entertain a very, very, very small rabbit hole. Pycharm disable show VCS blame author disable. The right-clicking on the number column, turn off code change information. Oh, annotate with git blame? But that says it's off. Oh, this is in CLion. Also says it's off, though. That just opened the thing. That's another way to close it, though. Preference editor inlay hints. Or right-click on the inlay hint. I went to CLion again. Configure. Code author. I just clicked cancel, I think, although it seems like it worked. Okay. Yes, good question. I did not explain it earlier. That is what it is. It's relatively new. Truthfully, I don't necessarily want it or need it, and now we have turned it off. Even the French quarter might be, and I am behind a bit now in the chat, so I'm catching up, which might be slightly different from French Canadian or French because it's based on Creole. I live in the French quarter. God, no, wouldn't want to wish that on my enemy. Fun to visit. Wouldn't recommend living there. I've never been down to New Orleans, any part of New Orleans, personally. Agreed, blame is not the best word. Yeah, totally agree. Bitbucket calls that annotate, which is not as negative, but also not very specific. I like author. I don't know what's wrong with just like author view, author annotation, something like that. Does anybody know whether it's possible to clone or fork one folder of the Learning Guides repo? I do not believe it's possible. That being said, I don't know for sure. If your goal is to download it, okay, if your goal is just to download it, to use it, right, on your device, if that's your goal, if you're not trying to make a PR, you're not trying to publish code back to GitHub, if your goal is just to download it, what I would recommend is go to the Learn Guide system, go to the actual Learn Guide page for the guide you're interested in and look for a download bundle. There should be like a download bundle button at the top of the code. That will download for you essentially one folder out of the Learning Guide system. It will actually have some extra stuff like libraries and some other things, but it will basically download one folder for you. If your actual goal is to be able to make a PR or to push back to GitHub or to publish your code or whatever, that's not going to work for you. You need the repo. To the best of my knowledge, the only way is to clone the entire repo. I don't know of a way to clone just one folder. That doesn't mean it's not possible, but I don't know of a way to do it. It's huge. It is pretty big. There's a lot of stuff in it. I have no arguments there for me. It's pretty big. Learn Guide documentation in GitHub is like 4 to 7 gigs. Found out the hard way. I've never looked at the file size, but I'm not surprised, truthfully. It's definitely pretty big. There's a lot of folders. There's hundreds at least of folders inside of it. Honestly, there's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if there was more than 1,000 folders inside of it. It is a very big project. Definitely true. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, if that's your goal is to publish back or whatever, the only way I know how to do it personally would be to clone the whole thing. Now, GitHub, I think GitHub has an editor built in, like you can edit individual files, so maybe you could clone it and just not, or maybe you could fork it but just not clone it, right? Fork it in GitHub, but don't, download your copy, right? Don't clone it locally, and then potentially you could change files that way. I don't use the edit inside GitHub web interface very much, so I can't speak too much about it. Well, that seems odd. Why would we have pass here? Is this work? This might not work, actually. This might just be stubbed. kind of feel like this is not functional, right? Like show would have to do something, and refresh, and like all these would need to do stuff. We also don't have any like initialize, right? Although it does say you would use the driver. But I mean, display is kind of the same way. Like you wouldn't use display directly either. You would use the driver, like ILI 9 whatever is what I'm using. 9341 driver. But I mean, it still needs all this stuff. Author 100%. Pycharm. Yeah, so I'm definitely on board with the old Pycharm. Got a lot of configurations and all kinds of good stuff. Over 2,000 learn guides, dang. You can make a shallow clone similar to with fetch submodules. Interesting. I do not know how to do that, but that sounds pretty sweet. That might be worth a search. Was that Axel, I think, asked that? Maybe search around for a shallow clone. Git shallow clone. You might find a way to access different portions of it like that. That'd be pretty cool. I'm going to try to look back at the history of the ePaper display section of the code and see if, like, when that was, if it was intended to be functional, or maybe if it was just added as, like, here's the start of ePaper display, and, like, eventually it will get implemented further. This was just updating the constructor. So at this time, this was August 2021, and this person was going to try to get the e-ink display to work on the Raspberry Pi. Which implies to me like they did not necessarily have it working at that time, or as a result of this PR, certainly. Let me catch up there. You found the stubs, that's not Blinka. The frequency they work on learn guides. God forbid Adabot goes ham every week pulling origin before a push is probably an ordeal. Excuse me. It can be. I will say, despite being a massive repo, like, my computer tends to chunk through it pretty well. Truthfully, like, doing updates and doing pushes and stuff, or pulls, I should say, and fetches, I find the core repo, the core CircuitPython repo, I find takes longer on my computer than, like, learn guides or even bundle or anything, honestly. The core, I find, takes a very long time to fetch on my computer inside Pycharm the way I do it, which maybe I'm not doing it the right way, or maybe there's a faster way or something, but so it looks like this was initially created here, or no, because it got some code already. Renamed from there. I see, so the older history is here. It was eventually renamed from just display.io to Mint. Docs. Paper. So this is when this got created. It has 4-wire in here, actually. It has more stuff in it. It has, like, actual stuff in it. That's the wrong thing. I don't know. I don't know if ePaper display is meant to work or not. I'll have to ask Melissa. I kind of get the sense it's not actually implemented yet, based on the fact that show is just pass here and like refresh is just pass. And there's no like initialization, like send or anything like that that's sending data to the display controller. I don't know. The other one was frame buffer display, and it does not appear as though there is a frame buffer display either. So I think we might be just all right with display, honestly. Not that we need anything else. Is this actually implemented in Blinka? That doesn't look like it. This one looks empty as well. This might be a fun exercise one day, would be to implement shape inside Blinka. This is a core display IO object. It's not utilized very much, but it is there. Be interesting to make the Blinka version of it. You can find the right commit with git blame. Kind of. In this case, it was a bit tricky because the file was renamed a few times from different stuff, and then it originally split out from other stuff. Core has been streamlined by devs for the purposes of fast builds. Learn doesn't work that way. That's true. I mean, the learn sit doesn't really have to build much on the learn system, which is, I guess, definitely a big difference. It doesn't really have a compile step at all. It's just a bunch of code that stays in VCS, essentially. I mean, we run Pylint and we run some like actions tasks on it, but so I think, I mean, I think we're pretty good here. I mean, the thing is, we didn't have as much to change since we didn't have the CircuitPython terminal. So our show is still working. It still works the exact same way as it did initially. Our root group property is now working fine. Let's try a little bit of a different syntax just to make sure this other syntax works. I believe this code is equivalent, so I don't think this makes a difference, but let's say display root group equals a new group. That seems odd. I guess it would be display IO group probably is how it's imported. Make that a new group, and then let's actually use shape. You know, I mentioned shape. Shape is not a thing that gets a lot of attention. Let's use shape real quick here. CircuitPython docs. Shape display IO shape display IO dot shape. So you got to be careful here because this links to the Blinka one. Really, this is what I want though. More specifically, shape right here is what I want. Yeah, really what I was hoping to find was an example for it. I think, so I started, did I put? Maybe there's an example over here in core module. Shape, yeah. Here we go. All right, let's get some of this stuff and do it mostly the same way. So back into here, we created a new group. So now we're just creating a new group, putting it right into here. We're not even saving another instance of it or whatever. We don't need our, we already have our display. We're not messing with that. We want all this stuff though. And the only difference though, we don't want to do this. We already have a group. We're just going to go now display.rootGroup. This tests our getter as well. And that tile grid, there's our color. So we should end up with like a square of whatever color that is. Teal? I can't run it that way. Oh yeah, I need to delete the this end of show thing as well before we commit. I feel like we're getting pretty darn close to done. But I do want to remember to remove that print. Alright, so there's our first one. There's our show none. There's our changed. There's our set root group none. Uh-oh. That was anticlimactic. We set that to a new group. We create a shape. We create a palette. I don't know. Why did we... This feels odd, right? We create a palette with 2 colors. We used index 1. Why would I do that? Surely 0 is the one that's used, I would think, right? So I know Vector.io a while back, I think used index 1, but that was Vector.io, and that has since changed. Maybe shape was the same way, or maybe I got my wires crossed. Maybe it was actually shape, or maybe they both were. I don't know. Interesting. Okay, let's try like this. So my guess is maybe it's working, but our shape is not visible because it didn't have a color. Oh, no, I'm being completely silly. It doesn't work because shape is not actually implemented. Obviously. No, shape is implemented. Shape is implemented. Didn't we just look and it was mostly blank though? Extends bitmap. How does that work? Am I missing something? Oh, I don't get how that would work at all. Display shape. Takes a width, height, mirror, all this stuff. Does it change if we do this? So we don't need to spend any time implementing that. It's already there. So mirror X did not do anything, but I think that's actually mirror X only matters if you use set boundary or whatever. This just has pass. I don't know. I don't know how that's working. We did get palette 0 though, so interesting. Okay. The important bit, the bit we're actually testing here, was that creating this group seems to have succeeded. Adding this thing to this group also seems to have succeeded. I'm a bit perplexed that this thing actually does work, but somehow it does. Turns out it does. Really what we were testing, though, was creating our group, putting it into root group here, adding to it here. All that bit looks like it's working fine. So while that bit in the middle there is a pleasant surprise to me, I think our actual thing we're testing is definitely looking good. Oh, interesting. Where is that end of show coming from? Ah, okay, there it is. Let's look for more prints. Okay, no prints in there. Print. We don't really need that. Any other prints? Oh, no more prints, okay. Let me catch up. Good night. Yep, good night. Deshipu, thanks for hanging out. Shallow clone seems to have to do with commit history. Found out sparse checkout. Sounds somewhat promising as well. I've never heard of sparse checkout personally. So does this have pre-commit? Yeah, it looks like it. Okay. Would we want to run pre-commit on the PC? Is that should be fine, I guess, right? It's got all the files. Yeah, pre-commit run -a. Oh, this says scaling fix. It's just old though. Yeah. Whoa, that's not what I wanted at all. Black modified some stuff. A couple of files don't have reuse licensing information. They're not checked into the repo, so that doesn't matter. Not checked into the repo, so that doesn't matter. Silent. Missing function, method, or docstring. Yeah. The display group object that showing. Oh, I'm trying to think of the right way to word this. Let's look at the core. Yeah, why do I need to think of a way to word this? We should, theoretically we already did when we did the core. This would be shared bindings. I mean, it actually already exists, I think. It's a shared module. The root group on the display. Good enough for me. All right. Yeah, we're just going to keep failing reuse because those files are not checked in, but I want to keep them because I use them for testing. So just all these red ones here are not checked in, so they don't have licenses, but they're not in the repo, so I don't really need licenses. Silent, failed, display, access to a protected. Ooh, yeah, that's probably... That's probably just going to happen, honestly. I mean, I suppose we could go to core and we could just make it public. Core, you know, it's a... I mean, obviously in Python anyway, it's more of a suggestion than a public or private anyway, right? Because it doesn't actually enforce it. Core itself is all internal, so really anything that's on core, you know, could be considered private, really, for all intents and purposes from the API's perspective. So maybe we just don't need that to be underscore. Or maybe core should have get root group. That's probably the real answer, right? Core has set root group. Core should just have get root group too. Yeah. Which I think that matches actual core. Not to be confused with the display core, which is what we're talking about also. Do that like that, and this way we don't need to access a private thing. Private thing from there. Instead we just do get root group. Should we make it a property? It's weird because display core, in the actual core, it's not a property because it doesn't have properties, it only has functions. So in the API to the user, it is a property, but here it's a function called get and a function called set. All right, let's make sure it still works. Actually, let's make sure it passes pre-commit. I don't really care if it doesn't work, if it doesn't pass. We still need to change it again. Oh wow, the light has got me pretty washed out, doesn't it? We're getting to that time of year where it's getting so dark outside that I have a bunch of extra lights on so as not to look like I'm in a dungeon, but now I look like I have the sun inside my house over here, so I'll probably tone it down a bit with some of them. Oh, yeah. Added a new thing which doesn't have a doc string. This is actually the same. It's actually the same thing, honestly. Like, literally the exact same as this. It's on the core instead of the display, but this is just like the internal object, right? It's really still the display. It's like, it's the other layer of it that's internal to the system. I mean, one thing we could do, I guess, inside ePaper, we could at least go ahead and add. I mean, we could go ahead and add it. I don't, like I was saying earlier, I think the pass here, I feel like, and the lack of initialization, I feel like maybe these don't actually work, but maybe it does if you have the other driver, like I have ILI 9341, which I need to use my spy display. Maybe I need, you know, ePaper library, or maybe I need a library specific to one of those displays, and maybe that's where the bulk of the magic is rather than actually inside of here. That's possible. But we could actually go ahead and do it, right? So let's just do our two properties here, getter, setter. Ooh, that does get tricky though. We don't have access to core here. That definitely does make me think it's not actually functional. Where does core get saved? That's like foundational to the way this one works. It creates a display core inside of init. I'm thinking it's gotta not be working right. Oh, that sounds promising. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So there's an issue to add support, so I think the code that's there is like scaffold, essentially. It's not actually functional, it's just some parts of the code. there was a beginning of starting to do this, but it has, I think this person hasn't been around in a while, hasn't done much CircuitPython land. But yeah, unfortunately, I think the work that they started on it probably won't get finished unless they do come back into the CircuitPython community, but they had started it. But yeah, I think this confirms it's not actually ready to use yet. Yeah. That links to there, which is this. Isn't in there yet. All right. I mean, maybe that's the challenge then. I mentioned talking about writing shape for display IO. However, I will say I think shape is probably a much smaller challenge than implementing ePaper display all the way. Especially for somebody like me, I don't really know anything about how ePaper displays work, so that'd be a tough task. I'd be curious. I'll be curious to look into shape. I wonder if set boundary. I would assume that set boundary doesn't work in Blinka display, but maybe I'm wrong. That'll be something to look into one day, though, is if it doesn't work, then maybe we could add that on the Blinka side. So because we don't actually have core, it does limit, like, I don't think we really want to add these, because if we don't, I mean, I guess we could just make them pass, I suppose. Or, or none. I don't know if it's worth it, though, right? Honestly, I think it makes sense to just wait until it gets implemented the rest of the way. So let's leave that. Make sure I haven't messed up my formatting at all. All right, pass them in them all. Except for reuse, but we already talked about that. It's not going to pass just because it's looking at files that aren't checked in. So I think we're ready to push this and make a PR from it. Trying to think if there's anything that I'm missing. Nothing is really coming to mind, so yeah. A new commit. Our changes are inside display and display core. We imported image draw because I needed to use it to draw the black none. We got rid of current group. I'm not sure if I'm the one that added current group or not. We'll have to look at the diff. But I think we don't need it here because the core holds it and that's how it works. Unfortunately, again, with the confusing terminology, that's how it works in the core. The core of CircuitPython is that the display core is the object that has current group, not display. So we want to match that. Dashboard, my dashboard and I do public, but the other users, my dashboard I do public, but the other users do access not work. Sorry, I'm not sure I follow. My dashboard I do public, but the other users do access not work do any function. Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean. That might go back to something that I mentioned a little bit ago, but I'm not sure that I understand. So we swapped that internally. So externally, code still calls show, but internally now on our core, we call set root group instead. This is our new show nothing behavior. We actually draw a black rectangle. We force the full refresh so that it will actually get the sub-rectangle area. We added a docstring, the correct thing here to get this from core. The setter working correctly by calling core set root group. Okay. All of that's looking good to me. Here we renamed, So this is on the core, and in the core, the display core, we renamed show to set root, no, excuse me. Yeah. We renamed show to set root group. We also added a get root group here, though, which returns the current group. Got rid of a print. I got rid of set root group because I actually added this. This was originally just a copy of show. It turns out we don't want to copy a show. We just wanted to rename show inside of here. So now that shows as getting removed, which makes total sense for this commit. Okay. Root group properties on display object and properties / functions display core. Foamy guy set root group. Before I push, just because I already messed this up earlier in the stream, right? Or I pushed it the other day, not actually during the stream, but I discovered it during the stream. Just because I did mess that up though last time. Let me go get, before I push, so I committed but haven't pushed. Let me go get remote -v. Let's just double check. Yeah, foamy guy here is foamy guy here. So when we push it, it's actually going to our fork. So foamy guy set root group. We'll push that. We'll let that go. Question mark. Yeah, sorry, friend Jose over there on YouTube. Sorry, I don't understand your message or what you're referring to. I think you were asking about C#. Nope, that was a different person asking about C#. My dashboard I do public, but the other users do access not work to do any function. Maybe that was maybe back to the discussion of like public and private functions or something like that. I'm just not sure I'm interpreting your statement really to understand what you mean. And then even further than that, I also don't know if it was referring to something that I mentioned or that somebody else mentioned in the chat or what. So sorry, I just not sure where it ties back. So this should be pushed now. Let's check that out on the GitHub side. And I'm going to be wrapping up here in just a minute. So while we do that, let me just say, of course, thank you to everybody for watching. I hope everybody has a good night and a good weekend and all that stuff. I'll be back on my own stream tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. So if you're interested in some more CircuitPython goodness, I'll be back at it tomorrow morning for that. You can find me over on twitch.tv/foamyguy_twitch. I will also post links in this live broadcast chat when I stream in the morning tomorrow. I don't do that for deep dive because it's kind of a larger show and a lot of folks already know about it and stuff, so I don't bother with the links. But when I stream on the weekends, I'll drop the links, especially because on YouTube, the link actually changes every week. It's not just the same link like it is more so for deep dive in this sense. But I'll be back for that. I will, before I go right now, I'm going to make this into a PR here, but that's basically the last thing I'm doing. Let's see, this change updates the APIs to match a new core API behavior. There is no CircuitPython terminal for Blinka yet, so that portion of the behavior is not implemented here either. Tested successfully on Raspberry Pi. I think it's 3B plus. I'm not 100% sure. I think that's right though. I'm like 90, 95 B plus with this tester script. I'll put this if Anybody who wants to review this wants to use the tester script. Now, I will say the tester script is specific to the display that I have, right? So unfortunately, unless you have the exact same display, you'll probably have to modify it some. But I'll put this just because it is what I used. That's fine. I'll delete the comment from the top just to save a bit of space, maybe. All right. Yep. Thanks. Thanks, Foamy Guy. Thanks, Ask Patrick, for watching. Thank you, everybody else, for watching. Thanks for everybody who hung out in the chat, asked questions, answered questions, just chatted about stuff. Appreciate all of you coming, watching along, and hanging out. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow morning. Hope everybody has a good night. I will catch you next time.